The internet is broken. Business models and site design are entirely geared toward advertising and not the reader. On today's internet, advertisements are distracting, invasive, and overwhelming. In DEN, the primary objective is quality content. Instead of ads, you may occasionally see a boosted post where a user has risked value to increase its visibility. Just like any other post, you can upvote or downvote to help evaluate the relevance to your community. The more engagement a boosted post gets, the less the booster pays. Depending on the evaluation process, a booster can get up to 85% of their money back, if the post is well targeted and engaging. In DEN, quality content is the primary objective.
All right, everyone, welcome to the 33rd episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable, the only YouTube crypto show, I do believe, probably the only YouTube show at all that is using decentralized governance to dictate everything that we do. So one way or another, all of the formatting changes and everything else. Speaking of which, this is an hour and a half show based upon the vote of the community, the holders of the lot. So hopefully you guys remembered that. I just remembered it once we turned on, and maybe that's why we have fewer hosts. I don't know. We'll find that out. But anyway, today we have Greg from Rivet, we have Dave from Den.social, and
Hello.
Me, architect founder Dragonchain Joe. Quick update on last week's episode. Based upon the number of views, every host from last week will receive 266 World Blockchain Roundtable LOT NFT tokens, and every topic contributor will receive 111 LOT. These ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits inside that layer, and most importantly, governance votes. Speaking of which, we had a slew of them that were resolved last week. So this is the very first episode where we're, I guess, kind of following that mostly, and we kind of followed the hour and a half last week, I think, as well. But we also are running all of the topics through that governance. So we chose the January topics a few weeks back through a governance vote. The week's topic, this week's topic, is request for analysis. So somebody could post a project, post a coin, whatever it is, and we will analyze it in any way that we can. Do go and look. Yeah, go look. In fact, if you can show the post, there is a post currently to bring up new topics for February, and they will be thrown in probably the middle of January. We'll turn on a vote to decide the February topics. I don't know the dates there, but go in there and do it. There will be at least 7 new proposed topics that will be added to the list. So, and it'll be based upon their vote rank.
Yeah, and if you got a topic that you put in for January that didn't get voted in, throw it in again. Maybe it'll get in.
Exactly. And by the way, because there are a couple of things like that. First of all, note that the decision is made by lot holders. So you will have had to have asked a question on here or been a host on the show to have that lot, and they're the ones that get to decide which topics are shown. But anyone with a DEN account, any denizen out there can nominate new topics that can be voted up, and I guess more than seconded, I guess, but you get them ranked, and then they'll be on the list, and then we vote on them. And the thing about this one, I could very well see this being a regular topic. It could be every month, it could be every other month, like on occasion, but basically to just bring up any project and really drill into it and try to learn more about it with everyone. So do we have, because one of the votes was to add a short current events section. Is there anything topical in the blockchain world or touching the blockchain world that matters? I know the Kazakhstan thing with the high level of Bitcoin mining that is now gone because their internet was shut off because of whatever's going on in Kazakhstan. I still don't have a handle on exactly what's going on and who's behind any of it. But anyway, anything else?
Greg, what were we talking about? Oh, your mic's off. What were we talking about a little bit earlier before the show? You had some interesting points on that.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me in the past week is the massive uptick we've seen in signals that might suggest mass adoption is happening broadly across the crypto space. Now, this is a sort of subjective observation that I have made based on seeing, a slew of new celebrities getting into the NFT space, getting .eth added to their names. I literally saw Serena Williams .eth on Twitter say GM, and I about fell out my chair. Just not because I didn't see it getting to the point where this would happen, but I didn't think it was going to happen before 2022 started, or this early in 2022.
Oh, well,
yeah.
2 days before anyway.
The other really funny thing is you're starting to see, something that happened in the .com boom, where companies that were not involved with it or not native to it when it started adding .com to everything. Yeah, get this, Norton Crypto is a feature that you can now get on Norton antivirus software that, according to their description of the product, it says, learn about Norton Crypto and how to mine for digital currency using the idle time of your computer. So if it's on Norton, it's not a crypto jacker. It's a feature.
That's interesting because Norton will flag almost any miner that you try to download and install on your Windows machine as like malware, basically.
Now it's anti-competitive behavior, right? Because
and so whenever you read that, I feel like it's like that exists already today. It's just called botnets that mine Monero with your computer.
Right. But it makes sense too, right? Like if you've got a bunch of computers that you buy for your employees to do stuff, and they're just sitting there idle, why not have them mining some crypto or doing something useful?
Especially
when we think about
live in a cold climate where it'll offset your heating bill.
Right. I mean, and you're adding security to the network. It makes the most sense of anything that Norton often does to increase the security of any network. Encouraging people to use idle time to secure networks seems to me right at the center of their mission, but they're realizing it. And that is a mass adoption signal. The other thing that I've noticed, and I think that bears calling out, is the amount of coordinated effort to rebroadcast all of the FUD. There are folks out there who are really hitting crypto hard, especially trying to punch down the notion of Web3 as a thing that isn't just a ploy to fuck over the little guy, even though we know that this movement started for the exact opposite reason.
The narrative is interesting, right? Because I've noticed the same thing about I was doing a little bit of research on why the gaming industry is so against NFTs in games kind of thing, because it seems pretty contrary to their self-interest kind of deal. I was reading, I think Kobe on Twitter had a thread that was really, really well laid out, I thought. And so I started digging in and asking a couple of people like that were anti-NFT in games, like, what's the deal? What are you, what is the overall, like, what has everybody got against it? And what I got back most often was that the environmental thing,
right?
Huge. It's still a thing. Like, people really believe that every single blockchain, no matter if it's Bitcoin or if it's Ethereum or something else that doesn't even have its own chain, that every transaction each independent actual transaction is burning the atmosphere kind of thing, and it's hard to get past that when someone feels like they've learned it for themselves. Right. It's hard to get past that sort of like, okay, I see what you're saying, and that is a good thing to be concerned about. However, it might not work the way you think it works.
The other thing to remember, and know for a fact, we are not the only humans on the planet who have heard of paid influencers. I want to share this with you guys. This is the other piece that I wanted to make sure we talked about on today's show.
Cool.
If you go on Twitter and you check out a gentleman by the name of @DaveTroy, and this guy was really kind of an out of the woodwork technical expert who showed up just in time to help analyze why Parler was clearly connected to Russia and could have been driving some of the more aggressive coordinated anti-Parler FUD leading up to their takedown, right? This dude is so anti-crypto, it's painful. And he's not even being coy about the reasoning. He thinks fiat currency needs to dominate because it's better. He's basically taking the opposite principled position to most of ours. But if you look at his Medium page, that's the more interesting thing, because he's written an article where he talks about how he plans to churn out content meant to incite divides in our community in an effort to slow it down while he helps to lobby for legal action to stop it. I mean, this is a coordinated effort from a guy who, definitely takes pay for content.
Right.
And he's not the only one. They're typically hard to track down because influencers don't like to be outed for writing sponsored content.
It is unbalanced, right? Because I mean, if you have someone paying for on our side to promote it, that's a no-no. But there really isn't anything against someone lobbying publicly against it for pay, which is an odd thing. I don't know.
You can only short crypto, and then you can only long the stock market. Those are the rules,
right?
Yeah. Well,
you can only pay for shills. Paying for shills is a violation of SEC rules. Lobbying for crypto, but it's
there's a lot of manipulation out there that isn't solely in the exchanges, right? I mean, there's a lot of paid positive and negative in our community, and I say it's the same as any other thing going on in the world. It's all about division, and whoever it is, wherever they are trying to sow division as much as possible for control. And crypto is one of those things that is the most dangerous to people who are wanting control, because crypto gives normal people the ability to kind of exit their fixed game, right?
That's the real danger, right? That's the real danger people don't want to talk about, is that cryptocurrency is liberating, and it is individually the Web3 thing you were talking about, where it's gives a measurable
truth to that as well. Whereas, some things you could say, oh, this is a great thing. It's very liberating, but you can't measure it in any way. You can't prove that you're being told the truth in any way. You can't prove that the history you're reading is true anyway. And even things where it's I don't know, there's so many cases that, we've seen over the past few years that are obvious, and some of them are in big places and right in front of everyone's face, but they don't quite recognize it because the entire narrative, the entire media is pushing a different angle. And it's hard.
What's amazing to me still is that the underlying, my one-liner for all of the blockchain space really is that it makes it harder to cheat, and so if that's really the underlying truth of why this is so impactful, then you have to question everybody who's like, oh man, if this takes over, we're not going to be able to cheat so easily anymore. We got to stop that.
Right.
We can't have that.
And it feels like that bizarro world thing that's been going on everywhere, right? The sort of feeling that we are in Orwellian doublespeak land anytime someone's telling us that our freedoms are threatened. So we need to stop this thing through coordinated government top-down action, send in the gunmen to stop this encroachment on our freedom before they're beyond our ability to control. That is not an argument that you can make without being a complete hypocrite or being completely brain fogged. So I'm going to post this, guys, on the in the replies to today's show. This link to this meeting, because I'm doing it right now. This guy he says the quiet part loud. It's really fascinating to read. He picks apart crypto's weak spots in a section, and it's detailed.
I'll definitely look into it. What do you think, based on what we just got done talking about, and what you, Greg, started talking about, which was that there are indicators of mass adoption.
Right.
How do those two opposing forces come together? How's that going to work out, do you think? Because if there is, oh yeah, man, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon again, maybe, I don't know, or maybe for real this time. But then on the other side, there is all of this coordinated pushback against it.
They haven't stopped us yet, and I don't think they're going to. Right?
They're still early. Well, can I say some of the things that are interesting to me are, and I hope it's not just celebrities putting a .eth, right? .eth, 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 whatever you want to call it. That alone, I don't think that's a 2018 style thing. 2017. It's FOMO related, or it relates somewhat to, and I won't belabor this, but it relates somewhat to that the issue I brought up last week on the problem set versus the solution set. Everybody knows problems in the world are infinite, right? You have a world of opportunity to solve problems. Whether they're profitable or not is another question. But if you make your solution set tight, you're never going to solve all those problems. You're going to reduce the number of problems that you can solve on Ethereum if you're a maximalist to art that we're going to assume is owned by the holder of this token, number one, and tokens themselves, which is good, but it's very limited, and various things like that, all related to the financial side, not related to the other. You can tie them to other systems, of course, but that's not what they're looking for. And so when I bring that up, one thing that was interesting to me, not because there was a mention, because when a senator mentions Bitcoin, it's news still. It's a big deal, especially this past year when you had senators that were saying they're doing it right. Why are we printing cash? Right? Why are we printing dollars like this? Was as odd as it is, Melania Trump, because she did that NFT, which I didn't understand where that came from, what that came out of, but that last tweet where she mentions Bitcoin's origin block birthday and the fact that it's $1 trillion market cap was a fundamental based communication. That wasn't about, oh, look, I'm putting .eth in my name, or I'm calling myself
I saw that
Bitcoin
too.
Melania or something like that. It was literally that she was saying that was about the market cap and that they started something that is still here. That was an interesting thing. I was like, it kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. I guess I just assumed that it was someone's marketing budget, some project's marketing budget, where they, were able to, give her a price tag that, she was happy with, and then told whoever handles her Twitter to, do whatever these guys tell you to write.
That's
like
possible,
a lot of
I guess.
celebrities do.
It's like one of the Bitcoin people, maybe.
I don't know.
But keep in mind, like, if you read that post by Dave Troy, and there's a lot more. I've done a bit more digging into some of the mechanisms underlying his sphere of influence, and he's got connections that suggest that he knows people who might want to pay for that that aren't very friendly to the crypto cause.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is they talk about maximalism as a strategy that can divide us. So something you should consider before. Something you should consider before you go all in on somebody as a maximalist that's actually serious about it.
That's why I tell you, whether you're talking about the guys that wear yellow pants, red pants, the guys that even Craig Wright, the people that are odd, that become figures that people support because, they're with us. They're with us.
One of us.
Are the dangerous ones, because if they aren't in there for legitimate fundamental reasons, whether it's for the liberty side, whether it's for the monetary side, whether it's for the utilitarian side, whether it's for the transparency side, then it's dangerous, because most of the time they're either not going to be that valuable because they're just speculating and they're going to be fair weather friends, or it's going to be something that they're there for a reason, which I tell you, a lot of them are. A lot of the early people not early people in Bitcoin, in the early Bitcoin drama that led up to the fork, a lot of those people were not what I would consider Bitcoiners. A lot of them, even though they were pro Bitcoin, they would attack anything else. It was obvious division. It was.
Well, this is kind of like what I was talking about when I said I was talking to gamers about trying to figure out what it is that is the problem with the tech, and I think what I said was it's hard to talk to somebody who thinks they've developed their own opinion when really they've gotten the wrong idea, maybe from somebody else.
Right. Or maybe it's the 50 Cent Brigade, right?
Well, maybe there are literally people out there understand Bitcoin, and maybe they do, to the extent that they want to.
You can't blame them if they come in
emphasizing some different aspect that maybe is not.
Well, I would tell you, and I think maybe present company excluded, and a lot of people that we work with, a lot of people who think of Bitcoin think of it in a negative light because all they see is a speculative. That's all they know about it, right? They have no notion of it, of what it came out of, why it exists. that was totally erased. It's almost like, like you look at Amenhotep IV, right? There's somebody who is erased from history. And I would say Satoshi is kind of like that. Nobody who is on that speculative side or wants to say this is a store value only really wants to show you the white paper, because the white paper is about something else, right?
Right. What they want to do is they want to talk about why it's dangerous without recognizing at all that the ultimate use case of this thing is that it's separate from the system that is controlled by the ruling elite. Yeah. And they won't say that. That is the one thing you'll never hear them say, is like, the potential actual value of cryptocurrency is nobody can tell you to shut it down if you're willing to resist a use of force.
Yeah.
Like
that's why I always say one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. It doesn't really matter what that dollar price. If you're thinking about it in the right way, Bitcoin should be usable as this scarce thing that I can exchange with either of you today. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, and nobody can stop that, right? That is what Bitcoin is. And its dollar value is an interesting feature that can gain adoption, but that's not really the intent of it.
That's kind of
it's actually
how I talk about DIN to people too, is I tell people like, look, here's all the things, here's all the tools and all the things and why it's useful and why it's different and interesting. And money, by the way, is a happy side effect. Like it doesn't matter how much each individual token is worth. It matters that you're getting some kind of reward for things that you are typically monetized by someone else for,
Right. Forget about the fiat volatility differential between the currency you're getting paid in and the exchange rate. Like the volatility is coming from the fact that they're still printing money rapidly, and they're not even going to stop that, even though they said they were.
And by the way, I would say on utility tokens versus security tokens, and if you would go back a year ago, everyone would say across the board that utility tokens are gone. You can't have utility tokens anymore. They don't exist. That security tokens is what everything is. It was like the mindset that speculation will help me drive profit by adopting this traditional world concept instead of what a utility token can be. Because if you think of it, if you were to look back on us from, let's say, a few hundred years from now, the difference between those will be a spectrum. That it is, in my opinion, that the utility is a better way to define the value of a project, whether it is an entity that is a company. The fact that utility, it's great that you can map it to something I can pay for rent, right, with fiat. But the main point is that utility directly reflects the value of that project on how how much.
And there may be distributed microeconomies between machine only systems, right? Like you may have a situation where a smart contract wants to pay another smart contract in this thing to have some kind of balance calculated that is only relevant to a hypervisor. It doesn't need to have a currency value. You don't even need to know that thing exists.
Exactly.
What you need to know is that the number of transactions that have happened in it are equivalent to the number of transactions that happened in this other, unit of account, right? At the same time, it doesn't have to have a dollar value.
Money as a unit of measurement, as a measuring stick for engineering. Somehow, it's getting all jumbled together.
Well, and there's not really a functional difference between them, but the one that impacts people's bank accounts, obviously, especially in this day and age, is the one that people are most interested in.
Right.
And
that's a big part of it. It's kind of the gateway, really, because it's the thing that will wake a lot of people up. It's like, wait a minute. So you're telling me this thing is now this, that's an interesting thing. And the thing I've been hoping for all this time, and it's really hard to get through, and it just takes longer than I maybe would have guessed, is for people to have that same recognition of the utility. That is when, like say with DIN, when I can do things better on this system than on Facebook or Twitter, because it has this scarcity and these smart contracts and whatever. That's the realization that is important. But,
I mean, and just a couple more, two more quick points on this one. So I want to blow open something that we're going to be doing with Rivet as part of this too. Rivet is going to create an actual utility token, where all it's pretty much going to be useful for is moving requests that you haven't used that you are entitled to use from one Rivet account to another, from one wallet to another, controlled by another wallet.
Nice.
And you can even earn those we'll have it such that you can even earn those as as an affiliate, if you want to spread the word about Rivet, somebody finds some use in Rivet because you pointed them towards us, you will earn some of these request tokens that you can use to, send them on to somebody who might actually use them. But the thing is, we're going to sell an unlimited amount of them for the price we sell a request. So they're not going to have a market value.
That's awesome. I love it. No, but
well,
that's
actually,
good.
they could have a market value, but you'll never want to buy them secondary because you'll be able to buy them from us for a fixed price. It's not a
speculative vision, right? It is a utility. That is awesome. I love it. That's really good. Yeah. That's good info.
So, it's very similar to the notion that I'll bet you can come up with a reason why someone might want a hyperinflationary token to exist for a technical purpose.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Totally. Absolutely. Okay. Let's go. Topic.
Oh, okay.
This week.
Got it up. You want to bring?
Yeah, I'm ready with it. I'm ready with it. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I should. No worries. I could have clicked the button. This week's topic is request for analysis. We don't know that everybody totally got it, so I just did a refresh because there were some questions that were kind of circuitous about the various projects, but does not matter. Okay, so. First up, and I tell you, I always get anxious whenever somebody asks a question about Dragonchain because I want it to be, I want to be a good host to make sure. But you guys are both on board, so it's all good. So
that's what Mike want to hear about now.
Mike Lee asks for a comparison between Dragonchain, Cosmos, and Polkadot, especially with regards to interoperability. So I talked with, so everybody knows. Talked with Distant and Greg before this, and what we kind of want to approach this with is because they aren't all absolutely here's a ticker or anything like that. We want to make sure that we kind of look at these and say, okay, here are the projects, and there are 3 here. I would add a link to this as well. That would be that we need to do analysis on. So we want to hit it from say the vision first, and then maybe the how they are going to attack that vision, how they executed, what's the team look like, and then if there's anything else, right?
That's sort of a high, what's it for, right? Why does it exist, right. And then how do they do that,
right? Because if we start with the vision, it doesn't start with the price. I'm okay getting the price in there. If we want to talk about what are the prices on these, but so I can do this real quick, at least at the vision level, but feel free to interrupt.
Yeah, why don't you start us off, Joe? That'd be great.
So Dragonchain obviously was set up as, it came fundamentally from the approach where I had seen, multiple issues working with blockchain since 2010, and having been a software architect. So I came with a unique context into it that's what I did with everything. It didn't matter if it was a mobile code, if it was something else. I wanted to figure out how do we fix these issues. And when we went to Disney, it became clear, okay, I have a number of tools and the available that I can fix this blockchain tech with, but how do we what's the goal? So the vision very much was the ability to allow businesses to easily adopt for real value, not for speculative stuff, not for games. And when I say games, I don't mean not gaming. I mean worthless. And I say worthless even. Geez. When I say games that don't really solve a fundamental issue, I'm entirely fine with solving fundamental issues in gaming platforms. But anyway, that's what the vision was. Cosmos, I'll go into. I know they started with interoperability. Kind of made me anxious at first because I didn't know what they were doing, and they were. I don't want to say certain words. They were using a lot of the same communications that we were, which isn't a bad thing because it helped spread the word, but it was an interesting angle.
Right.
And Polkadot, the same way that they basically wanted to create. A universe of blockchains connected via bridges.
Right. And I think the reasoning is a lot different here, right? The reasoning behind Dragonchain has a lot more to do with the diversity of use cases, I see. Yes. And the reasoning behind Cosmos has a lot more to do with the diversity and need for bridges, for assets, right? To move one type of token into another seamlessly, just as a functional problem is difficult. and that's what they wanted to solve. And then I think Polkadot was all about NFTs, right? Because Polkadot comes from the folks who brought CryptoKitties. And it was originally sort of spawned as an idea that we need this because the thing that we really want to build will crash the layer 1 solution if everybody starts picking it up.
Right. And I will say Link was another one that was interesting because they started fully as interoperability, and then they moved very quickly without. And I don't know what developed behind the scenes, but at least their front-facing approach moved entirely away from interop and straight into decentralized oracles, right? But it's still in that interop world.
I feel like that happened. That was like an opportunistic thing that happened because it seemed like that was something that for DeFi to happen, you needed these like things that Link happened to be in a good position to go ahead and finish making, and then say, oh, you know what? We were already working on that. Let's just be the Oracle thing. That's something we can do. And then they're still, I'm sure, working on the rest of their vision, but that's kind of what they've been synonymous with is oracles.
Right. They're the sort of interoperability solution for oracles across chains.
Right. And I will say that whenever we talk about interoperability, always bring up 4 main types, and I'm probably going to totally mess this up remembering the order, but token was the most obvious one if you listen to the crypto world, that we need to be able to move this token off of Ethereum onto something else because it's too expensive on Ethereum. And there are so many ways around it. You can do wrapped tokens on other chains, and you can do various things. And I do feel that a lot of the interoperability projects have focused on that as a primary because it is so crypto related or focused that everybody in the crypto world gets it. I've always thought that although super interesting, especially if you were trying to build a decentralized exchange as an example, super interesting, but not really what's needed in the world. It's needed in crypto a little bit, but there's so many ways around it. And if nearly every exchange is centralized, and the ones that aren't are very expensive, which kudos to them. They built some great things, but there's also the security side, which is our primary, where we've had hundreds of millions of transactions that are interchain for security purposes alone, fundamentally, where we can measure the ability for someone to change history, right? Is effectively what we're doing. The third is utility. In my opinion, if you're saying blockchain specific, probably the most important pure blockchain angle for interoperability is, like say on Dragonchain, if you're building on Dragonchain and you're already getting all these benefits of security and flexibility, but now some new chain comes out or some new feature comes out on, let's say on a storage chain like Siacoin or Storage or any of those, all of a sudden you can say, I need to use that feature. And inside of everything you're already doing, you can plug straight in. And the fourth is interoperability with traditional systems, which is probably the most realistic, and everything that we've seen, that's been the main point of everything that is coming to us is I need to plug this in to that, but I need smart contracts or something that, for various features.
If software eats the world, and then crypto and blockchains are going to eat software, there needs to be a mouth.
Yes.
Right? Somehow the systems that exist in the world today have to be consumed by the systems of the future, right? And if you've got blockchains like Ethereum and sort of the layer 1 type approach where it's tantamount to have decentralization maximized at the expense of throughput and all of those things about blockchain that you hear the OGs most ardent to defend, and sometimes the most ardent to critique layer 2 chains for not playing by that rule book for, right? This is a totally different level of thinking about it. This is an important step to getting to a place where We don't need to have all those old legacy systems that are fragmented, you know,
it's a good way
under the control of under the control of people who might manipulate them to their own advantage.
Right, and it is a good way if you have siloed systems in your enterprise. It is a very good way to without a full rewrite of everything, which nobody wants to do. It just costs too much risk to get away from some of the disadvantages that are currently in your network. That you can make certain things transparent. You can glue that legacy system to something that's new that gives you more capability. So there are a lot of really amazing things you can do with that. And some of it hits legal, it's risk, it hits real world things, but also features for users. So interesting stuff.
And I think there's another really interesting point to make here with the three that Mike brought up, because Dragonchain, Cosmos, and Polkadot take a sort of a breadth of coverage perspective when it comes to the diversity of problems they solve within their problem set. The point isn't to solve one problem very specifically in a layer 2 solution, is to create a layer 2 solution that other people who do not want to understand layer 2 solutions because it's very hard can build on in order to to shortcut the engineering cycle and sort of stand on the shoulders of the geniuses, so to speak. It's an accelerant that you can sort of think of as the librarification of layer 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'll tell you what I like about Cosmos is, wait, not am I? Yeah, Cosmos. Sorry, I get so many names mixed up because some of them are named similar things.
Which Nifty are you into? I'm joking.
Which
Sorry.
what now?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, actually, there's on Cosmos. There's this one. There's a couple of projects on there. One of them I'm really interested in is called Kudos, and they have their own blockchain running on Cosmos. And I think it's interesting how the three. Dragonchain, Cosmos, Polkadot. So like we talked about Polkadot being a layer 2 that allows you to do things that would just be too expensive or impossible in layer 1, right? And they've expanded from that. I think that was the first driving factor was let's be, like what were they called before?
Polkadot was, what were they called? I don't remember what they were called.
Yeah, I forget too. It doesn't matter.
We got to try to get my buddy Dan Shields on here. He's worked with them closely, and he'd have a lot of interesting insights from Polkadot land.
Yeah, Dan, come on one time.
Oh yeah.
And then like Cosmos, the way that I see Cosmos, and I'm really limited in my knowledge on theirs. It's one of the more recent ones I've been looking into a bit. They more sort of started like an environment where you can create your own blockchain that is interoperable with any other blockchain in that environment, right. which is kind of different and cool because they have a hub apparently that keeps a common ledger from all the chains that branch off of it. And then anybody can come in and start their own nodes, their own blockchain that runs your own custom nodes, however you want to do it, as if, just like you're starting up one without their hub. But then what you get though, is you get to easily tie into that entire ecosystem. So anybody else that's building on Cosmos, they've got their own blockchain, right. But it's not like on Ethereum where you have your own token on the Ethereum blockchain,
right?
And then all of that is using the Ethereum validators on the same chain to do the same stuff.
And it's
with them, you have literally like different blockchains.
Can I say that there are a ton too that that aren't brought up here? One would be Hedera Hashgraph, another would be Archain, also here in Seattle, that focused. And I'll say this is the one big difference if you come, and it's a very technical thing, but this is why I will say, my preference being the model we took, but there's a reason for it. It's not because we took it. It is because every single one of those, like, so if you look at Hedera, you look at Archain, they use, and I think even Polkadot, maybe, they use various types of sharding to separate the chains, right? So that you can work together in the same, but across the board, all of them use protocol specific bridges, right? So effectively, effectively you have to code to that protocol, which makes sense. It's obvious. It's like, okay, I have a common protocol across. The issue with common protocols, and the reason that we didn't do that, is that you have it's a funnel effect of capabilities that,
Right.
and there are typically ways around it that they have.
It's pretty opinionated though, right? From a software development standpoint, it's the notion of opinionation in software terms, right? It's kind of a term of art. So for folks who aren't familiar with that, a thing is opinionated in a protocol or a language or a specification if there is one right way to do things that the specification is clear about.
That's
unopinionated.
That's exactly it. Because and it's the difference, in my opinion, at a high level. This is very philosophical software philosophy. Okay, that it's the difference between something like JavaScript or whatever the official, I can't remember the official name of it, that is a browser embedded thing that they tried to standardize that, but they had competition between browsers, and it was now it's a headache, right? Everybody they've gotten used to it, but there's a big headache in the browser.
Are you talking about WebAssembly?
Yeah, but the difference between that and what is RESTful compute, and maybe that's not the best example, but RESTful is that RESTful's not a protocol. It's a design pattern philosophy. It's basically here's how things are. Yeah, here's how things are, and you can fit your stuff into it. But here's why the internet works effectively. This is why the internet works, and why you could start by saying that, Amazon is a bookstore, but now they stream videos, and now Netflix and all the rest of these things. But it's the same. It's over the same very simple protocols.
This is the way we solve the specific problem within our solution, but we're not opinionated about how you do it. So you can change these things, and here's how you can change them, versus like an opinionated approach, which is here is how this works. This is what you call. This is how you write it. If you do it the other way, it's going to call up an error in our custom linter that we created for you.
Right, and that's why it's you have to expect it is very hard to bring those concepts in to business relationships, or to to compete with someone who's saying this is the way, because our way is effectively that if you had to say we have a bridge, because we do have our L5 nodes are bridges for the network security side, but most people don't care about that because we have them there. They just use them. The thing that they care about is the bridge to what they care about, right? So if I build this and have these smart contracts, and effectively what we did with that is we said it's software. Look, you already have an API to connect to Bitcoin. You already have an API to connect to any other blockchain out there, and SAP systems and QuickBooks and anything your business might already use. Right. So our interface to those is literally their interface, and it's a beautiful thing that is made possible by the architecture, and that's what I would say is the key difference. That and you could compare it, by the way, as well to non-decentralized projects like Hyperledger, where IBM will go in, and there are a lot of reasons economically for it, and sales and marketing, but they'll go in and try to make a consortium where some of these are similar in that way. I wouldn't compare them to that, especially on the bad points, but the model is fairly similar, that we all have to come in and agree to a standard in order to work together, right? And Hyperledger IBM, they will push it as, well, you're in this industry. That industry has certain data types, has certain common, but the problem is they don't, right? It's software. Every company's doing something different.
Then they're cursed by the problem of functional fixedness. Then, right? Like if the technology gives you new capabilities, but you hard code in these old metaphors for how the system worked before, then you're stuck retreading reality in the old way, and sometimes that's way more complex than need be, and sometimes it actually cuts off the ability to do some new things that would be really useful.
And the funniest thing is that approach, and this is very abstract, that approach most directly fits with the same approach that you see in F1 racing, where the specs are so tight because they don't want any level of competition on anything except for the driver. I don't know, philosophically, I'm not a racing
F1 is, I think,
it's like, I don't want to get right, but it is an interesting concept that you would never build a business that way, because I want the advantages over my competitors.
If you can come up with a way to make your F1 car go DeLorean hover mode, and it doesn't break the rules, but it can, instead of having to use the properties of aerodynamics to pass on a turn, it can just fly over the car.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that would break the rules of Formula One. They would never let you build that. But in a race that is essentially a zany race that is the world of businesses competing with each other.
I love this.
Build me the fucking flying car.
Yeah, and that's why it's important, because you can't. Again, it's the same thing. You can't restrict your solution set. You have to, especially as a platform, you have to say, look, you could build freaking anything. And that was our point. We want you to be able to build stuff that I would never think that you would want to build, that I might think is stupid. That's what I want you to build.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, the thing that is going to change the world is something probably that a ton of other people who could have done it have dismissed, because nobody's done it that way before. And they're afraid it won't work.
And frankly, the subject of, or the execution of how we are describing these things today, I think is key to that, because in order to know what is possible to be built, for someone out there to realize, holy crap, if I take this and plug it into that and do this with it, I will have something that no one's ever built before that everybody needs.
Right, exactly. And there's a layer 3 out there that hasn't yet been composed, where somebody invents cosmic dragon dot. And
oh boy, here we go.
And it uses all of them to do something new on top of everything.
I wanted to say, Joe said something a minute ago about architectural, like high level overview, and you used the word philosophical, and it made me think about tribalism. And I'm just wondering, are we just still at that phase of philosophically, this is how it should be done? This is how we're building it. This is how the other person's built, the other team's building it, and does some of that tribalism just come from like the devs themselves being like, no, this is the way that it should be built, and this is how I think it should be built. And then if we are still in that phase, maybe we're on maybe it's the end of the beginning or something. If we are going into mass adoption, is it now all of these have been fleshed out independently, built in the way that the various communities philosophically think it should be built? And now we get to see what works, and now we get to see what gets, like,
I love that question.
Whenever it tries to get used for what it was built for, and that kind of thing, And
Dave, I absolutely love that question, because I think that it's not going to change for the people who are close to the problems, right? Like, it's going to keep happening, and it's not going to be that obvious to them. But there's going to be millions of new developers who aren't involved with those philosophical, like, little holy wars within very similar protocols that can be chosen between. Right, they're just going to use things, and it's going to be at such a scale that the law of large numbers is going to answer the question for us.
Well, can I say something? Because I think a lot of times it's less the developers. I mean, definitely there's some level of not built hereism, where they only want what they have come to understand is the right solution, right? And they believe in it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's competition. That's an engineering competition. You look at the world of Linux, open source world, and how toxic it was at certain points in history. I mean, there was some crazy stuff, but they suffered from some of the same things that we do in FUD. I mean, the actual, I believe the origin of the term FUD, and some people I think contest this, but was with the Halloween papers that came out from Steve Ballmer. I've met him. I've had dinner right across from him before. Yeah.
Did it chill run up your spine? Was it sort of like meeting?
Yeah, it was always this weird. Anyway, I never have liked the guy, because I was a Linux guy, right? But anyway, they had to deal with some of the same things, and there was tons of drama inside of there, and there's lots of, I'm sure, paid marketing that stopped division. But you look at crypto. Our biggest danger, in my opinion, is the level set of some of the toxic maximalism that you have, because new devs coming in will tend to gravitate towards, oh, there's a ton going on over here, and I'm just listening to them. I think a lot of the problem is with the paid set, where they want to push a project because they're heavily invested in it monetarily. They don't give a shit about what it does. Right. And then you have some people that are associated with the engineering side but are not engineers. You have a lot of people in Ethereum that aren't engineers, but they answer engineering questions, and they very much are, sometimes the issue. Anyway,
Yeah, no, I'm totally one of those. But Joe, you brought up a point and about Balmer, and I think this is actually broadly applicable to this question and to where crypto is more broadly. Like one of Balmer's early, post appointment to CEO for a while talks, dismissed Linux and said, dismissed open source and said that most open source projects only have like one contributor who does everything. And then like maybe one guy will show up and do one thing and never do anything else at all. That's not a threat to take seriously. Well, he was wrong, right? Like, what if that one thing is a critical security flaw that nobody else could find, right?
Well, he literally in those papers called out the whole reason that they were going to do anything was for fear, uncertainty, and doubt directed at Linux. That was the whole point of it. And it was odd because somebody on the inside released it. I mean, it was that was a leaked memo, right?
I know about the I'm thinking of is embrace, extend, extinguish. That was that philosophy or that game plan. Which we see like Microsoft do and stuff like that, where they're like, oh, we're going to embrace this competing thing, and then we're going to add features to it. We're going to add so many features to it now that now we have proprietary features that everyone uses. Right. And then, the extinguish part is like, oh, now nobody can use the original free one. They have to use ours because we've added so much to it and we've advertised it, and now everyone uses our version. And so now the original gets snuffed out.
But it was ultimately a rearguard maneuver. What they did is they created a fact that some poor bastard in some backwater still has to support Internet Explorer 8 for their website because there's like one guy who refuses to let go of this one feature that they had to double build.
Yeah. And so I'll say these things when people don't look at the fundamentals and the vision lead to an extension of the adoption period. It's slowing everything down, doing what we've been doing for the past 3 years, in my opinion. We would have been well ahead of this if there wouldn't have been the tribalism, there wouldn't have been the maximalism, you wouldn't have had it's ridiculous. So.
But the caveat that I would throw in there is once you get to this mass scale where it's starting to spread out and parallelize massively, those pockets of inertia just they become rocks in a river of rapids. They get floated around and passed up.
I agree.
It's to the detriment of everybody who does that.
Yeah, it is network effect. I mean, you're gonna have that's exactly what it is. Okay,
it doesn't stop the water though, right?
right. Okay, that was awesome. That was great. It's a great question, Mike. On Vacation asks,
now for something completely different.
I would like the host to discuss a crypto called EverGrow, a crypto that is a taxes token. Oh, taxing. I think it's taxing token or rewards holders with a Binance stablecoin US dollar pegged, I believe, 8% of every buy and sell goes back to holders. 8%.
Yeah. So I was looking into that. I've never heard of this one before, and I was looking into it honestly today for the first time when I saw this question. So I had to look it up and see what it was about. There's a bunch, and I'll pull it up here in a second, but there's a bunch of stuff that's built almost exactly like this. So whenever I was reading through it, it's there's a trend right now, especially on Binance Smart Chain, where you can you can launch anything you want over there and throw it up on KuCoin to trade it, and all that stuff. Eventually on a pancake swap, and there's some legitimately interesting things happening over there. But there's this thing called Reflections that's super popular right now, and that's what this project is doing. They're building it so that every time anybody trades it, every time anybody swaps it for something else, then a percentage of it goes out to everybody who's holding the token, and that's where that comes from. They're doing it a little bit different here. They're actually going out and buying BUSD. Dollar pegged on Binance chain. Instead of reflecting it directly to the holders, they're buying and they're doing that, but they're also buying and burning. So let me bring up their page that I have over here. Let's see, I've got it, because I think the most interesting thing that I saw whenever looking into this was basically, and this is basically all they have at the moment. I was just looking into what's built. They launched late last year with this. And then you have this breakdown here. Here's what happens every time you sell stuff. So in addition to carving off a percentage of every transaction and using that to basically prop up the ecosystem, right? Or the propping up the, what's the word that's not price? I'll say price for lack of a better word. Before you build anything, there's nothing that's going to drive. There's no utility to drive like anybody to actually buy it. So what people have been doing is coming up with reasons for people to hold it, right? Simply buy it and hold it. And then you're speculating. It's speculative trading, but it's speculative holding. You're assuming that other people are going to adopt it or try to speculate and stuff like that, which will bring traffic onto the exchange, which every time somebody moves it, you get a little bit paid out to you. So it's their passive income thing.
Right.
What I thought was interesting beyond that is they have this thing called anti-well mechanism. And it's something that I've seen on scam coins a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is a scam coin. I'm just saying it's something I've seen on scam coins a lot because I've tried to trade them and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't freaking sell. You know what I mean?
Oh,
a lot of times you'll
pisses
see
you off more, right? Like,
yeah. So if you ever try to sell more than 0.125% of the total supply, you just can't. You're not allowed, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of things where, anything you do, you're getting taxed, you're getting
Hopefully they didn't build a freaking permission list.
penalized, you're getting. So if you actually use it, which is interesting, you're getting penalized. But if you don't use it, you actually get the rewards from people that are getting penalized.
It's literally the contract probably knows the amount, the total supply. So it's an easy calculation to say, oh, that's too much. The question I would have is how would you then therefore know that I don't, first of all, just make 5 transactions and, is there a time limit to that? And then secondarily, if I just split them up, it's like, well, I'll move this much into all of the accounts. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of odd. It's like, what's going to keep you from doing
tokens
that?
Are the gateway to hell.
Like that one scam with the, and I can't remember what it was called, but there was a whole thing on the, this one dude on YouTube. I happened to watch it where it was a bunch of TikTok influencers selling coins, or shilling coins and then dumping them on people. That was some kids charity thing or something, right? Yeah. And they had an anti-whale mechanism that last minute was updated so that the shills could sell, and it was just a really, and they all lied about it apparently and stuff. I don't know anything about those guys on TikTok though. So,
So
anyway.
Assuming this is completely legitimate, which I have no idea, right? They've got a pretty website. They've got a lot of stuff coming out on paper that they've written down.
That's the part that's interesting to me. So we talk about vision. So we talk about vision first. That's supposed to be the vision there, right? But it's at the bottom.
Yes. So the very bottom, you have this end result, which is an MMO NFT based. So they want to build all of these things like the app, the NFT marketplace, NFT lending, which,
maybe that isn't the vision. Maybe that's just the. Maybe those
are just the build up.
If it is the vision, it reads like a roadmap. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And to me, the thing that bothers me about this, first off, the thing that bothers me about this the most, you will not find a link to a GitHub repository anywhere on there. They don't address in the facts whether they're an open source project. This is not open. You will not be able to see the decisions they're making. You will not be able to contribute code. You are going to be able to use this thing, but you will, unless they make some changes, not be able to participate in its creation unless they hire you, which bothers me. But the other thing about it is, if the vision is that game or whatever the hell else, why is that not the top line? Like, why aren't they saying like, here's this really fucking amazing idea. Now here's the roadmap to get there.
Maybe
it could be that they don't plan to ever get there. You have to keep that in mind.
And it could be that
just don't know.
Their vision entirely is a platform based on these tokenomics that they think that will drive enough interest that people will build on it. I don't know.
It looks like a cool technical experiment, maybe, because I can't see the code.
Well,
but
I will say, frankly, I wish there were more economists doing economic research and testing on with this technology. It's all those tools are out there. And you could do some really interesting things economically, and it blows my mind that they aren't the ones that are even involved primarily.
Such a weird look at the numbers they're using.
Yeah,
that's a really weird set of numbers.
I was going to say the other issue I have is the number of available tokens. Now, that's not an issue according to them because they bill themselves as a hyper deflationary token. I don't know why they would mint. I don't know how many bajillion that is, but and then
It
burn
probably
50
gives
of
them
right off
some
the bat.
runway.
Why didn't they
It
just
probably
make
gives them
half as
some
many?
runway, right? It probably gives them
Right.
some runway. For how long? Basically, for how
Um,
long now can you claim that you're hyper deflationary? Well, we did burn half of our
Well, no.
hyper septillion number of tokens immediately.
Well, no, they
Why
do
would
have
you
a
do that?
buyback and burn feature, so that over the
Right.
lifetime of the project, the max supply will be less and less and less and less over time. So they're deflationary, which is one of the issues I have, because the messaging in the white paper suggests that because it is being it's deflationary, because it's getting more scarce, the value will go up. And I completely disagree with that, because there's a lot of things that are scarce that I can't do anything with. Yeah, there's not very many of them, but then like you have to have the utility with the scarcity to make it
Right.
worth anything.
Right.
And the
It's
other
as
thing
if they're
is the white
marketing
paper,
as
to me, read
features
like a white
outcomes
paper. What are you
that they
saying,
haven't
Greg?
proven. It says they're marketing as features outcomes that they haven't proven.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'll give it that. It's like a 2-month-old interesting project, and I don't think the white paper reads like a white paper.
I will tell you,
think it
there's
reads
an
like
interesting experiment you could do, which
like-
would be to provide an equivalent distribution, automatic distribution for anyone who provides demonstratable, and that's the hard part. How do you objectively measure utility, right? So if you could provide utility that is, and it could be volume. I would argue even that NFTs are kind of that the ones that move most are the most valuable, not the ones that are marked on paper with a certain value, which is odd, right? But anyway,
Hey,
yeah.
Dave, click on Sam Kelly's LinkedIn. Let's see what this dude's about.
Yeah, I was going to say, what you can do is you can look and see who's building it. You can look at the team. So they do have link. Oh, I thought
Chairman of the board is
I thought it was
an
a link.
interesting
Maybe it's not a link.
self-title.
Maybe on their website they have it with a link. Hold on.
Well, anyway, that's
There it is.
do you guys have any thought about it being on Binance? Because there's a lot growing out on Binance and Solana because Ethereum is failing in many ways with the fees and the congestion. So any thoughts?
It's a trade-off, right? I don't like the paradigm of thinking about it as it's like, well, I mean, obviously I'm building on ETH right now. Rivet builds on ETH and helps a lot of people build on ETH. And the reason things are the way they are is because they're sticking principled to a layer one, call it a shibboleth if you want, or call it a necessary, unsacrificable capability if you want. It is the way that it is because if you give that up, then there is a hypothetical outside edge case where men with guns come and tell you to turn it off, and they succeed. That's what I don't like about BSC, and that's I think they underestimate the risk that could happen.
I think BSC is fast and loose. That's the danger.
Right.
See,
Binance,
you know what I mean? I see
Binance
it
could go down because they can jail everybody operating it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The thing that worries me, and I don't want to say because you could guess what I think about BSC or Solana maybe, but my issue with it is you should look at it in terms of if Chase Bank created a blockchain and had a ton of really good adoption, they had a lot of companies building on their blockchain. Would you really go for that? Because that's kind of how I see Binance. I mean, it is controlled, and you don't know where it's based, but it's based somewhere. There aren't. I don't know. There's not a lot of decentralization.
Well,
and
that said, the counter argument is fair, right? And I want to give some voice to this because the other day I saw. I don't know if you guys saw the spat with the new Frog DAO, right? Where
a little bit, not much, but a little bit.
Where an ETH personality said something that you probably shouldn't have said, and I really hope you don't feel like that new people getting into the space would find alienating, right? That you have to have this high integrity system on the layer one. Things built on Ethereum are very high integrity, but the cost of entry is insane, right? So experiments like Solana and I'd say probably more exploity systems like BSC are going to emerge and be necessary for those folks to get their feet in the door. And while Solana isn't where I would want to trust it a whole lot yet,
Right.
Because there's still a team of developers who can turn it off and troubleshoot it when it fails.
Yeah. And when I say, go ahead.
It should exist. It should exist, and it can exist because you can't point guns at Ethereum and Bitcoin to turn it off. Those are kind of firewalls to allow for similar experiments that aren't as secure because they haven't had enough time to develop that kind of resilience yet. It doesn't mean that they don't hold those values and that they can't work towards them.
Or maybe
I think it could present an opportunity
on it, and or stuff that like you have like you don't care so much necessarily if it gets taken away from you or breaks or something like that. There, Solana as a as a non-distributed platform is how I look at it. It is distributed a little bit, but like there's room for that kind of blockchain. There's room for everybody to do exactly.
And by the way,
I think if we as the OGs embrace it and help, they can get better at what they do without sacrificing the core of what they want.
That's precisely why. Because when I say I don't know that I would use buying it. I'm not saying personally. I'm saying builds something as a token on there when I'm already building stuff on Dragonchain with smart contracts and everything else with known philosophical meaning behind the hybrid decentralization that's there. And when I need a token platform, Ethereum is the obvious go-to because they are the strongest network with the most tools, the best universe ecosystem. You can multiple types of wallets, everything else, but you have to have the variety. And it's not even just because the government might come in and point guns at them. I mean, that is a definite, but it's also that they might have issues in their protocol. They might have issues in their math. They might have issues in the cryptography that they use that is brand new. That's why I won't use any zero knowledge proof stuff yet, because you can already get the same features structurally by and large. There are some cases where zero knowledge proof directly is applicable and makes sense, but a lot of the places that people are applying them, primarily by the way, marketing, that putting that into a white paper is the biggest reason that you're seeing it.
And as a business, you don't get the luxury of adopting the bleeding edge and really contributing to research as a test dummy, because you have people who are depending on you to keep a thing going. And it's early, right? But the thing that I love about Solana and their community that I just want to give them a shout out is their passion for it. I think they're genuine. I think these people really want to be a part of this, and they really, if they had found out about it in the early days of ETH, they would be sitting here talking about the
one of the reasons I've got zero problems with Solana. Even though like I pick on Solana sometimes, and I love seeing the jokes about Solana, because they're usually accurate. Like Yudi on Twitter was saying something like, all you have to do to break Solana is to remove the reset button and wait, which I thought was really funny. I thought that was great. Because
a lot of guys listening, that's a fair criticism. That also is like
that's why I'll get, as someone who's interested in like what gets built on these platforms more than just like how much a token is worth. I watched stuff like that, and I'm like, Solana's interesting. It'll be great once it's reliable. Or the reason that I get into like mining a token to discover how it works, how does it actually feel to operate on this network?
Right.
And the ones that I've invested the most in speculatively have been the ones that I've had like experience actually running a node from my bedroom on their network, and in talking to the developers and talking to the team and seeing what they're about and getting this vision and being like, what, there's actually a pretty good chance that this is going to stick around because this is really an interesting use case. And then I'll go out and then I'll speculate on where it might go and how long it might take to
get
there.
And the real unimpeachable value, right? The real unimpeachable value is the passionate minds that are capable of building something instead of just sitting around and accepting their lot in life and doing nothing, right? All of these people with the passion to do should be respected for that, but also, as incumbents of any platform, acknowledged as a real value driver. Like Human beings are the ultimate resource, and if you're committed to something,
yes,
you can see it and pursue it. As long as you don't give up on it, it will be a thing. I'd say especially in the Ethereum community these days, we need to embrace that more. And we have not been good at that. Yeah. But also, I would say on the other side, like for the folks who are trying to engage with you, don't think they're trying to hurt you. They're trying to help you if they're giving you actual criticisms that you can look at and go, we need to figure out a way to make this better.
Well, if they're doing that, usually it isn't that though. You can look at so many cases.
I agree. Like there's shit talkers who just want to get some.
Stay off Reddit. It's generally that though. Then variety's needed. Variety across the board's needed. Yeah. Because you're going to have something that nobody ever expects, and one project has the opportunity to pivot to it, and that's what they become.
Yeah, the variety is great. The variety is R&D. The whole space needs R&D. A lot of it still, and it will for a long, long time. Right. Pivoting back to the question a little bit, something I just thought about. This is a speculative analysis section, right? Mm-hmm. So if I was looking to invest in something, let's say I was looking to invest in something, and this is not financial advice at all, but here's what it scares me about this one, which is that talking about roadmaps and how long it takes to get to something, I might think, you know what, this is an amazing idea. It's going to be great once it gets there. They want to do all this though. They just, like I said, started November, I think they said at the end of this past year. They want to launch an NFT marketplace, NFT lending platform, staking pools. Okay. Easy. Oracle-based NFT game, an app, the EverGrow wallet where you can buy, sell, and swap, including with fiat.
That's a fucking 15-year roadmap already.
An Oracle-based NFT game, multiplayer online battle arena, and an entire exchange in 9 months.
That is not going to fucking happen.
You know what I mean?
I love the ambition.
Like 9 months,
it's not going to happen that fast.
9 years, maybe. Right. But I don't know about 9 months.
Maybe if you were open source and actively incentivizing grants to have other teams build those in parallel, maybe that, but it would still be hyper ambitious. So not to say that they don't mean and believe that they can get there, but yeah,
they can do all that in 9 months. I just don't know if they can do it well.
But yeah, I guess it could be done garbage in 9 months, but I don't even know if you can get garbage running in 9 months for all those things.
So I guess my personal take would be skeptical.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important.
I'm not against it. I'm just skeptical.
Go check out the people behind it. Think of this as like an early stage startup.
It is.
Get to know the founders.
Which again is great.
If they look like, when you get to know them, people that you would want to put a risk like that into, that's what you're betting on with this token.
And is it marketing focused, or is it tech focused, or is it business focused, or what's their actual focus? It's hard to tell from that, other than the economics. So
I mean, and even if you like them, don't put in more than you can afford to lose, and expect to lose it when you do. Think of it as a gift to a friend.
And if you're only getting in it for the reflections, you better be really sure that there's going to be enough attention on this token for those reflections to matter.
And also, before anybody puts a dime into this, go make sure that there is not a permissions list to escape the whale protection. Mm-hmm. Because if there is, they can rug everybody, and there'll be nothing anybody can do about it.
And I think whale protection is a really fancy name to put on a flaw. Honestly,
there really shouldn't be a permissions list. I mean, if they wanted whale protection, then they should only allow accounts to hold or to acquire that much at one point in time.
Now that's the thing too. For different things to watch out for, right? To where people will see green candles on a chart and they'll chase green candles and they'll go buy some, and they don't realize that the contract's written in a way where you're not allowed to sell it, and that's why the green candles are going up.
Yeah. Right. Some exchange, takes a while for the market to price in that knowledge. Centralized exchanges operated on that. A lot of where prices would be inflated. Mt. Gox in the early, it's like the price was radically inflated because people come in to they send their Bitcoin in there to sell them, but then they could never exit. Right. There are others that do that as well. Okay, so this next one is a very long, potentially off, maybe out of scope, but we can treat it as this. There was this is Dragonchain Hodler. That there was a Trump-focused token that I didn't realize was making the rounds. I didn't see anyone post about it, but he said it was a FJB, I think. So he was asking if there's anything we could do on Dragonchain to do this. I would say the clearest potential to this would be that there is a layer in Den called the Donald, and there are a number of NFTs already attached to that. And if anybody would have some reasoning to promote that layer to get people to come in and produce more content and get involved in that community, that would be a clear, positive, fundamental, utilitarian approach to this, because you're going to say, look, this is not just a token that is named as something that we're going to sell for, as a meme token, right? But this is a lot that, an NFT that you could come in and own some of this, and you can, along with that ownership, then help guide the community, because the governance there, and you could effectively do what he's describing, promoting something crypto, but it would have behind it, at least in my opinion, promotion of something real, not just it's like, I'm going to buy something as a joke and see. I would also
say that the store of value market is very fucking crowded right now. So if you're expecting a store of value token to take off, you're competing against the granddaddy of them all, and it's crotchety, getting up their son, right? Like there's Bitcoin and there's ETH, and you can even say some of the others, like at that level of early and at the bottom of the stack, are your competitors. And if you don't have a realistic way to see competing with those, like you need to think about that. And if you can't come up with a way to articulate it, then you're running on hope, and that's not a strategy.
Yeah. So anyway, that's. You have anything on it, Dave?
No, I don't think so. I was I'm not sure. I don't think I was prepared for that one. I don't really. I think bringing so here's something I'm probably not going to do. So I'll go ahead and lay it out, because it was a really cool idea I had. It'd be great, just like what you were talking about, to build a game that does integrate with the LOT tokens and uses them in that game, and then uses the layer as the community hub for it, that kind of thing. I could see that.
Well, the governance, you think about the governance of the game itself. We have a couple of projects that are looking at both governance of the game, how you would handle the community. This show itself, I think, is a very early, because this is only the 33rd episode, but a very early example of what can be done with community and driving the format of a show. I don't know. It's super interesting to me to see how this will develop, and you could do the same thing with any other community, So,
but I would say seriously, think about how you're going to answer the question, why should I do this when there's Bitcoin?
Yeah.
If you can answer that question in a way that's really meaningful and powerful, then you might have them.
There is, I don't know if we'll get to it. There is a question later, topic on meme coins, I believe. So,
okay. Yeah, especially when there's multiple things that are starting around the same time that all sort of do the same thing. The question of why this one over the other one becomes a little more important.
Yeah. And if there are actually any fundamentals involved, or if it is a joke, right? Okay, next, Bitcoin Johnny has Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash current status. So, and I have to admit, I've not been up to date. I can say at the top level for vision on both of these that Litecoin, I've never held Litecoin. In fact, I was really busy with other things, productive things in my life when it came out, so I didn't get involved. I didn't ever dislike it, because I liked the fact that it was one of those early forks. It's like, somebody's doing something interesting. It's awesome. And I do really like the fact that the goal, the initial, at least technical vision of it, was to solve the problem where Bitcoin was supposed to be one CPU, one vote, right? That I have a miner that's running a CPU, but it rapidly commoditized into more and more efficient miners, where that didn't, and you ended up with data centers where you had centralization. And so, if I remember right, it was a memory focused angle to mining, so that, and it was called Script, right, with a Y, I believe. That was a totally different approach to proof of work mining that made it much harder to do something with an ASIC. And there are some, even Luke Jr., if you remember him, and I'm The dude's brilliant, but I never knew if I could trust him because of some of the stuff that he would say and do. But still, one of the things that he brought up back in the now kind of a good segue into Bitcoin Cash in that forking was the ability to counter that. And I thought this was amazing and brilliant. And I know of other people that are doing it in practice in other areas, I'll just say. But it is that you could theoretically change the mining protocol deterministically on every block, so that the last block would dictate that, okay, this next mining protocol is going to follow classic Bitcoin. So your ASICs are employable. Boom.
Yep.
Now, okay, this next block, oh, shoot, you better have this type of processing power. The next one theoretically could even be staking. You imagine if you had a single blockchain that would do that, it would radically in my opinion, decentralize. Now you'd have different gaming on it, but I think the funny thing about it is I wish they would gone that way, because it would have led to the same thing that you have in all warfare, which is offense and defense technologies, continuously competing in the field of battle when they're able in those horrible times.
That is pretty interesting, because
it would have been amazing.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely things like Raven Coin, Monero has a randomized algorithm.
Right.
One of the Dash forks, Raptorium, has an interesting new. It's the same thing. It's a randomized. You don't know which. They switch them a lot so that you can't build ASICs as easily around them. But I haven't
like that.
thought about doing. This machine that I'm building right now that I have to order a new main board on because it arrived broken. Hey, used parts aren't always the best choice. That would be interesting for the machine that I'm building, because what I'm doing with that is okay, how can I maximize all the different hardware that I've got? I've got massive amounts of memory and a CPU, and everything has a mineable coin where you can mine this in memory, and you can mine that on your hard drive, and you can mine this on your CPU and that on your GPU.
Right.
But I haven't seen one project where you're mining that one project and it's randomly selecting what piece of hardware that you use. You better have all the different things. I haven't seen that. That's interesting.
Some of them you just sit out on. It would be beautiful. It's like, well, I'm not in that area.
And even rotating proof of stake in is interesting. I haven't seen that either.
One thing that I do have to say I like about the potential for opportunities to be found in LTC and BCH, they're lower volume tokens in terms of the chain's validation costs. They're going to be lower. It's a lower barrier of entry thing to get into. So if you are coming to this and you are in a situation where you're how am I supposed to get a piece of this pie when all of the OGs have already driven the price up of Bitcoin and ETH to this point? LTC, BCH, ETC, these are great entry points for people just getting in, right?
Well, and you look at that from a utilitarian view as well. If you need to transfer value, and I don't know the current fees on Litecoin versus Bitcoin, but the funny thing, if I want to transfer value, the craziest thing to me, I still have to wait. Is that really true? That Bitcoin is cheaper than Ethereum? That's so odd to me, right? Yet Litecoin is, I assume, cheaper. I don't know that right now, but that's another interesting thing. If I literally want to use it for its utility value, I need to send to you something. Which one do I pick? And does it have a high enough level of security to do that? And that's why I've said it before, but I think a lot of approach to Ethereum's scaling issues was already built in. They already had test nets. They should have just formalized them and provided better measure so that you knew, and the ability I could swap over to a smaller network, because this transaction is not that important that I need to spend $300, right?
Well, I think the key to that is if you're going to build features that ultimately become economically central, and it needs to be really well secured. That's where I think Ethereum Classic did something cool, and I have to full disclose on this. When they did this Open Relay, my company, my former company before we called it Rivet, we helped build this optimization into their consensus mechanism that made it very difficult, despite the fact that there wasn't a lot of validation hashing power, to buy a 51% attack, right? Like we figured out this technique to make it so that it costs more exponentially in hashing power to create uncles that might actually dominate and then win.
That's cool.
So that's the risk with these lower hashing power chains, right? They might get attacked.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing you have to be wary of. I don't think Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash have that issue. I think ETC's issue is solved there, but like,
can I bring up something because Ethereum and Ethereum Class was always interesting. Sorry, Ethereum Classic was always interesting to me. Sorry about that, because Ethereum Classic took a very philosophical view of the nature of decentralization. I thought I applauded it, and I lost money in the DAO, and I was all for it. It's like $400 or something, but I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever. That someone
that's where the real fucking
if the law is the code, what that person did was not illegal.
Yeah. If code is law, then your law was poorly written. And the way the chain proceeds is
that was beautiful,
right? That is a neat thing. It is a thing that the super mechanism of we can create a fork and undo this if we can get enough people to agree to it was literally there to allow for.
Yeah.
Right?
Now something that, and we're running low on time. I'm sorry. Something though that is super interesting to hit this exact question. We could go through the reasons that Bitcoin Cash is there, right? And I have respect for both sides, right? That what Bitcoin was doing, although some of the ways that some of the people did it, not the network, I thought was not great. If you were on Reddit and the Bitcoin subreddit at the time, there were a lot of things that shouldn't have happened if you respect liberty.
I was there
right?
in that Reddit fiasco, and it was just.
Well, here's the thing, though. The thing that I always focused on, and probably to some of my, it's like I should have maybe taken better advantage as a speculator, but the fact that the what became Bitcoin Cash side, and at the time it was Bitcoin Unlimited, and there were multiple projects with different angles on it, that all now apparently are Bitcoin Cash, and that they were making engineering arguments. I can't remember the main engineer that was there, but I always read his stuff because I'm like, it was super interesting. He would talk about how the miners were handling the congestion, and that you could see that the level of what do you call it? I'm sorry, the pool would increase based upon these, the mempool. So of what's sitting there ready to be verified, and frankly, if you look at, and I'm not gone because I don't have enough vested interest in worrying about the details behind Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. But if you look at how Bitcoin Cash is operating, it's well under capacity. But they don't have as much traffic, of course. But you can see the effects of, and it blows me away as an engineer and as a guy who was in blockchain at the time. So it wasn't like it was a different type of engineering. What blows me away is that SegWit and a couple of the other pieces and the way that they came into being, including some very weird negotiations with Garzik and all the rest of that stuff that happened. It always blew me away that is what's there and was proposed and accepted and built as the solution to the actual problem, because it didn't make sense when you looked at it as an engineer. And the problem was at the time, and somewhat still today, is that the engineers didn't rule the day there. It was the media machine that did what it did. And it's like, I don't mind it in the end, but I think if they would not have forked, if they could have solved that problem together, Bitcoin would be exponentially more valuable in dollars, if not not utility itself. So
right. And if you want to point to a weakness in Bitcoin, it's very easy to point to sort of the inflexibility of its community development process. Like they are going a direction, they've got an iron fist on it that has some advantages, but it has some opportunity costs. And and things like BCH and LTC, even to some extent, are opportunities for people who aren't in yet to do things like,
Yeah.
build up an empire of mining and hashing power.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can look at it as there is a marketplace of the philosophical culture itself too. That some people might fit right in and the Bitcoin culture and build something amazing, and others will, that's not what they want. And so you kind of have to look at that as well.
Their fundamentals are still there, though. Like you can get into these things, and you can trust that if all of the world's commanders of gunmen decide to try to shut the thing down, they will not succeed. So you can get into this with the same level of I trust that I'm not going to get rugged by a statute.
And by the way, something else about those attacks that is very interesting, because you bring that up, the thing that should be highlighted about that is it's not across the board, but pretty well in Bitcoin and Ethereum and any of the stronger networks that the attacks will actually bolster the network. And it culturally, for one, but also economically, that it becomes the bigger the attack, the more expensive it is. And you're throwing away ever more exponential amount of other currency to attack this network that you want to attack. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there's been a few attempts to not attempts. There's been a few solutions for that, for different projects. I think I wanted to say though, since we're running against the time wall,
and I have one more thing too before we go.
I think it would be appropriate, like or inappropriate, to not talk about the actual differences real quick between Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash in regards to like network speed and like what are their like almost physical characteristics. And so I just wanted to point out that if you're looking at things like that and tokenomics and fundamentals and things, Bitcoin Cash it's Bitcoin still, right? So it's based on that. It has 21 million coins maximum. Litecoin has like, what is it? 84 million? Yeah, 84 million coins. And the block times, Bitcoin Cash block time, they stuck with 10-minute blocks. Litecoin's like 2.5 minute blocks. So there are those differences in there too.
Right. It might make Litecoin more fun to develop a little bit of a padding on because it'll happen quicker.
And I like one of the things I like about Litecoin more recently. I used to mine it when it first came out, and then I like swapped it all for Feather and lost everything, or whatever I did. But what's being used on Litecoin now that is interesting is like what Pirate Chain is doing, where they're doing delegated proof of work, where they are using Litecoin's hash power to add a second layer of security onto their own, I guess in a similar way that Dragonchain does with the L5s. But part of their hashing, part of their proof of work is they got their own. They use Equihash, but then they also have checkpoints on Litecoin's blockchain, and they're not the only ones doing that. There's several projects using that delegated proof of work.
And the cost of Litecoin does make it potentially powerful for that use case for more people who want to build things like that. So that's an interesting point. And I wanted to add before we have to move on to whatever else we have to do today. I know it's true for me, and it's probably true for all of us to some extent. We are coming into this exploring these questions and answering about projects that we're not close to. Right. These aren't things that we work on every day. So if somebody out there is like, and wants to wring my neck when I say something, or like wants to punch Dave or kick Joe in the nuts because we just totally fucked up in the way that we criticized your project, don't take that as a thing that you need to go out and like fume about. Get in touch with us and like come on the show and talk about it. Tell us why we were wrong. We're open to listen and have a conversation.
Yep. Wouldn't even be a debate. I think it'd just be a conversation because we fully open to learning more about some of the projects out there. Right.
Yeah. There's tons of stuff I don't know, especially about stuff I talk about. There's
by the way, I had another guy that we had that we've worked with in the past, and he's been involved in another project lately, and he came back because he had a regular salaried job before and was helping out wherever he can as a coder. But that's the one thing he told me is it's like, man, I now realize how you can't keep up with what the rest of the crypto world because there's too much going on, right?
There's a lot,
Stuff just
Mhm.
I'll
flies
always
by.
talk about just what I've got, which is sometimes very, very small amount, but I'll still talk about it. So there's a lot of things. Yeah, come fill in the blanks for me, that kind of thing.
So
What else was I going to say?
And Dave is like a Renaissance man who knows all of these different projects. Like it's actually kind of
from the mining, it's a
when
perfect,
you start putting out
it's a
tabs,
hobby
man,
situation.
it blows my mind.
Yeah, it's a hobby mining because I look for stuff that, I've mined way more stuff than what I still mine, and I'm getting back into some that I got out of because I found that, maybe that was actually like going somewhere I didn't think it was, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Really had something else, but that's fine. I don't know.
It's all right. If you come with it, you can kind of break in. So
I know what it is. There's a lot of talking about not being able to keep up. Everyone's new at this, right? Some are less new than others, but this is something that everyone's still very new at. So like all of these projects matter because when you look back at the historical events of what happened over in the 20s, you're going to see stuff we haven't even seen yet, but in hindsight, you're going to see it as necessary research, necessary exposure, and also I would say public education, because a lot of people are going to have to learn in the school of hard knocks because there ain't a class for it yet, and you're going to have to go in there and get wrecked before you realize like, oh man, I really need to like stop listening to words and start reading them and dive in myself, kind of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the neat opportunity of the space, right? Like, there's nobody in here who has 2 decades of experience. Nobody, because it hasn't been
not
around
with
for
this
that
specific
long.
tech.
So,
all right,
cool.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, that was our first hour and a half episode. You'll have to tell us if that's too long. We could anyone with LOT in World Blockchain Roundtable could propose that we make it 30 minutes because this was just overload. They could do that if you want, right? So
you could also send it to 5 hours if you want to see if our voices will run out.
Totally. And it might have fewer of us, but maybe we'd have something where you'd come in and out, or whatever. It's like, I'm gonna go eat lunch.
Please nobody vote up 5 hours. I don't think I can talk for that long.
No, I'll vote it down. So anyway, but thanks for joining. Thanks guys for being here. And it's the new year, so 2022. This is going to be a good year, I think. Although off to a really crazy, weird start. But make sure that you go in there, share this episode. Go through and on the next episode, for episode 34, it is about CBDCs, so central bank digital currency. So basically, go in there and ask questions related to that. Bring up topics related to that as you can. Vote up the ones that are there. Some of those might be a little esoteric, hard to get to, but a lot of them there's a lot of Liberty stuff you could ask in there. There's a ton of stuff that we can talk about. And share this episode in the meantime. The more views it gets, the more LOT everyone who contributed will get. Like, comment, subscribe, all the other things. I think that's it, right? You guys, I didn't ask. You guys have anything going on this week? Sorry. Totally.
Dave, Greg? Go ahead. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I'll go. Rivet is, like we said, about to launch Cardinal, which is going to be a sort of like a version 2 of the core idea behind the EtherCattle initiative, which was our streaming replication mechanism. Cardinal is the idealization of that, and it's going to allow us to start expanding out to all of the chains. And we're going to put in anything that we can put in that is easy to do within this framework, and the framework itself is capable of handling an absurd amount. It's open source, so if you want to go see the details, you can check out our Cardinal repo on Git. Open Relay XYZ is the name of the overall Git org that we're under. But there's going to be some interesting stuff coming, and this is my
streaming replication.
That's how we actually we haven't really talked about it, but yeah, that's the underlying secret sauce behind Rivet.
Cool.
Is streaming replication for nodes. The thing that I want to tell everybody before we leave here is that this year is going to be fucking huge. But there are going to be a lot of people who start fighting this, and we need people to go out there and talk about it from the standpoint of where we should be going, what we can build, because we're not going to be able to defend this thing. And the thing that got us all into this, the beautiful ideas underlying it, if we are just going to react to criticisms, we need to go out and talk about why it's great and why we love it and why it's going to make the world better. So that would be my exhortation to everybody is, go talk about the future as it can be, as a way to address our critics.
And I would even add, try not to fight about it, try to talk about it. There's a huge difference, and talking about it, having a conversation about it. It's not about right and wrong. It's about understanding each other's opinion and why they think what they think. Because there's things you're going to be wrong about. There's things they're going to be wrong about. This tech is fundamentally good for everyone, I believe. And if you believe that, then a conversation is going to get you a lot farther than a bickering, reactive fight.
Right. Yeah. They win if we spend a whole bunch of time yelling at them about why they're wrong. We win if we get the message out to all the people who are going to be newly listening to it, that this is a thing that everybody can use to make the world better than it is today. For a lot of reasons, it's been breaking. So I'd say be positive this year and go out and make some noise.
Yeah. And don't assume the negative. Don't keep it because a lot of people will say, oh, we can approach this and I'd love to see this, but we'll never get there. So I'm going to shoot for this. And it's like, if you shoot for this, you're going to get 80% there. But if you shoot for this, even if you get 50% there, you're way, way ahead. So that's a big deal in software itself, because people tend to self-limit based upon what they think is actually possible, or, in the real world. So Dave, what else is going on?
Oh, I was going to say I think it's going to be a big year too. It's going to be a big year for me personally, but a lot of that's going to involve DIN. I'm always waving the local flag, my hometown of Gainesville over here. So this is the year that, for about a year, I've been kind of like not spinning tires, but getting feedback and changing my plan a little bit based on like what the real world needs out of DIN. And so this is the year that every single month I'm doing an in-person meet space regular event that is focused around DIN social. And so this is my thing, but it's DIN's thing too, because we're going to start getting more non-crypto eyeballs on it. And that's kind of the focus there, is like something that's easy enough to where there's an app on the App Store, you download it, you don't even care it's about crypto, and all of a sudden you're doing things that you could typically only do with a DAO, with crypto and that kind of thing. So we're doing all of that without the scary like crypto overtones. So that's a really interesting experiment. So that's this month starting. And that's also the other thing is site-wide governance that's going in to DIN, which is this month or next. And it's basically go time, right? I feel like there's been so much being built, and there's still so much to build. But something that Greg said earlier is that there is sort of a shift in at least how many people are willing to talk about it. And so that's given me sort of a warm and fuzzy that, okay, now it's the time. This is the year to push.
Yes.
Because if we don't do it this year, and if you're working on something out there and you're doing something and you don't do it this year, somebody else might. So it's time to get in gear. People are looking at stuff.
If you invent the flashlight app, you definitely want to have that in and out to the world before Apple decides to onboard it to their own and take all your revenue, right? Like the crypto flashlight app has not yet been invented in a while.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like everything is actually getting some level, or feels like it's more established in the normal world than it was before, right? It's permeated.
Maybe that's just because of who you're talking about. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, and for Dragonchain, we just released the quarterly report for quarter 4 2021. So go check it out. Tons of stuff that happened across Dragonchain.
And those are thorough.
Thanks for that. What's that? Yeah,
those are thorough.
Yeah. And the team is amazing, right? So largely, I think probably the biggest thing that I think that I will point to for 2021 was the realization and the eventual understanding of how to communicate the fact that at least in my opinion right now, and I put money on this, that this is all essentially behavior systems stuff. All of the crypto world is effectively focused on behavior systems. And if they aren't, they should be, because that's the key to understanding how to make it work. We're working on types of standards that will hopefully be out this first quarter on that. And, we have other projects and other things that are being kicked off now. So anyway, there's a lot of good things. I agree. I think 2022 is going to be a good year, no matter how it starts. So anyway, that's it.
We're just going to decide that that's how it's going to go and make it so.
Why not?
Fuck yes. Yeah. Oh no, the way you create the future, or the way you get to a future you want to see, is to build it. So
it's the only way. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. Go
week.
through some topics in for next week. See you on the DIN governance call later today if you're around.
Yes.
And thanks again. Bye, y'all.
Cheers.
Bye.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of the never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?